Nobody from my family came to my graduation, not even my husband or my kids. They all went to a party instead. I stood there in my cap and gown, surrounded by cheering families, yet the seats reserved for my loved ones were completely empty. My hands were shaking, not because of excitement, but because of humiliation. The whispers behind me cut deeper than a knife. Maybe her family doesn't care. Maybe she forced herself into this degree. At that moment, I realized the people I loved most didn't just abandon me. They wanted me to feel invisible. Before I tell you how this one night changed everything, make sure you hit subscribe, like this video, and share it. Because trust me, you won't believe what happened next. I kept smiling through the ceremony, pretending their absence didn't crush me. But inside, I was breaking apart. My classmates hugged their parents, their kids ran up with flowers, and husbands kissed their wives proudly. I walked alone to my car, holding the diploma that was supposed to be my victory. But little did they know, while they were laughing and drinking at that party, I had already planned something that would shake every single one of them to the core, and soon. They'd wish they had shown up that night. ... That night, when I reached home, I expected at least a note, a message, anything that said, "We're proud of you." But the house was filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. They hadn't even noticed I was gone. My husband was raising a toast, my kids were dancing, and my family was enjoying the party like it was the best day of their lives. I stood at the door, my gown still on, my diploma clutched tightly. In my hand, no one looked at me. No one even paused to ask how the ceremony went. I wasn't their wife, their mother, their daughter at that moment. I was just invisible. I quietly walked past them, upstairs to my room, tears burning in my eyes. I wanted to scream, to ask them why I wasn't enough, why they couldn't give me one night. But instead, I looked at myself in the mirror, cap crooked, mascara smudged, and for the first time I asked myself, why am I waiting for their approval? Little did they know? The degree I held in my hands wasn't just a piece of paper, it was my ticket out, and soon, this house filled with laughter would echo with silence. Because I was about to change everything. The next morning, the music was gone, the house smelled of spilled wine and leftover food, and my family slept soundly, completely, unaware that their betrayal had lit a fire inside me. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, staring at my diploma. For years, I had sacrificed everything, my youth, my dreams, my health, so they could live comfortably. I cooked, cleaned, worked 2 jobs, and still studied at night while they ignored me. They thought my education was a joke, that I was just wasting time. But what they didn't know was that this diploma wasn't just for me. It was my weapon, my escape plan. I had spent months in secret preparing for this day, applying to positions, securing interviews, even saving small amounts of money in an account they knew nothing about. My so-called wasted nights weren't wasted at all. I was building a future they couldn't control. As I traced the gold seal of my degree with my finger, I remembered every cruel laugh, every dismissive word, every time they told me I would fail. And instead of breaking me, those memories hardened me. They thought I needed them to survive. But in reality, they had become the weight dragging me down. I looked around the house, at the expensive furniture, the polished floors, the walls lined with portraits of a happy family. It was all a lie. None of them cared enough to show up for the most important day of my life. And that was the moment I made my decision. I wasn't going to beg for love anymore. I wasn't going to cry in silence. No comma. This time I would rise. And when I did, the same people who abandoned me would be forced to watch from the shadows, as I built a life they could only dream of. The day I left that house, no one even noticed. My husband was too busy texting his friends about another weekend party, and my kids were glued to their screens, laughing at videos, not realizing their mother was quietly packing her life into 2 suitcases. I walked past the living room, my diploma tucked under my arm, and paused for one last look. All those years of cooking their meals, folding their clothes, holding the family together, it meant nothing to them. My throat tightened, but instead of tears, a strange calm settled over me. I locked the door behind me and whispered, "Goodbye." What none of them knew was that I already had an offer waiting for me in another city, a company that valued my degree and the endless nights I'd poured into my work. I took the bus, my heart pounding, every mile carrying me further from the cage they had built around me. For the first time in years, I felt free. Weeks passed, and I rebuilt myself from the ground up. I rented a small apartment, started my new job, and slowly began climbing higher than I had ever imagined. I worked quietly, strategically, making connections, learning, and growing. Every paycheck, every recognition at work, every little success felt like fuel to the fire that betrayal had lit inside me. Back home, they thought I'd come crawling back. They assumed I couldn't survive without them. But while they wasted nights at parties drowning in gossip and lies, I was building something unstoppable. And the twist? Fate gave me a chance I never expected. My company was about to sign a multi-million-dollar deal, and the client on the other side of the table was someone my husband admired, someone my family desperately wanted to impress. They had no idea. The woman they ignored at her own graduation was about to walk into that room as the key decision maker. The conference hall was buzzing with chatter when I walked in, heels clicking against the marble floor. My tailored suit, the badge with my new title, the calm confidence in my step. Everything about me screamed power. The executive stood as I entered, and among the group, I noticed him, my husband. His face froze, and his glass of champagne almost slipped from his hand. He wasn't alone. My children were there too, dressed up, smiling proudly beside him, as if they belonged in this world of success and wealth. My chest tightened, but not with pain anymore. This time, it was satisfaction. They hadn't come to my graduation, but now, here they were, in my world, desperate to be accepted. The client stood up and greeted me warmly. "Maricela, it's an honor. We've heard so much about you. Your vision, your work ethic, your brilliance. Without you, this deal wouldn't even exist." All eyes turned to me, including my husband's. His prideful smirk had vanished. My kids looked at me with wide eyes, confused, as if trying to connect the mother they dismissed with the woman standing in front of them. I sat down, crossing my legs, and leaned slightly forward. "Shall we begin?" I said calmly. The room fell silent. My husband's eyes burned with disbelief. For the first time, he realized I wasn't the quiet, overlooked woman waiting for his attention at home. I was the one with the pen, the contract, and the power. But I didn't stop there. As the meeting went on, I made decisions with authority, turning pages, asking sharp questions, sealing points that impressed the client. My husband kept trying to catch my eye, but I ignored him completely, as if he were just another stranger in the room. By the end, the deal was finalized. Cameras flashed, hands shook, and the client announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the beginning of a partnership worth $50 million. All thanks to Maricela's leadership." The applause echoed, but I only heard the silence in my husband's chest. He knew in that moment that he had lost me forever. As soon as the cameras were gone and the room cleared, my husband stormed toward me. His face was pale, his hands trembling. "Maricela, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell us you had all this?" I stood tall, finally meeting his desperate eyes. "Because none of you cared enough to ask," I said coldly. "Not when I studied through the nights, not when I worked weekends, not even on my graduation day. You were too busy chasing parties while I was building a future." My children shifted uncomfortably. For the first time, I saw shame in their eyes, but it was too late. Years of silence, of being mocked, of being left behind. They had burned into me, shaping the woman I had become. He reached for my hand, his voice cracking. "Please, let's fix this. We can start over." I pulled my hand back and smiled, but it wasn't the smile he remembered. It was sharp, unshakable. "You had your chance. Now I don't need you. I never did." The hotel doors opened, and a chauffeur in a black suit stepped forward. "Your car is ready, ma'am." Gasps filled the room as I walked past them, heels echoing with every step. Outside, a sleek black limousine waited. Cameras flashed again, but this time it wasn't for the deal, it was for me. I slid inside, the leather cool against my skin. And as the door closed, I caught one last glimpse of my husband and children standing frozen on the steps, watching me drive away, realizing they had lost me forever. Because the woman they once ignored, the woman they left behind at her own graduation, was now the woman they could never reach again. If you felt every second of Maricella's journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't anger. It's success so big that those who doubted you can only watch in silence.